Hi guys, how are you? And welcome back to this channel. So today I wanted to do a video that's a little bit different, and I wanted to paraphrase a quote that came through quite recently in the last few days. So I'm going to pop on my screen share right here. And I call this the machine theory, matrix machine theory, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, basically, so I just tried to transcribe something that came through. I had a session a few days ago with this person, and we were kind of bouncing perspectives back and forth behind, what's really going on. So I guess it's a continuation from the soul trap or no soul trap video that I had just put out. But basically, it's going to be about his perspective, which I found very, very interesting. And so I transcribed the part, I think it was like a good 5, 6, 7 minutes or so. I tried to transcribe it to the best that I could. So I'm just going to go ahead and quote and paraphrase this entire conversation because I thought this perspective was so interesting. And I think I find it interesting, more people could benefit from it. And I think it's definitely worth sharing. So we kind of got talking about, this entire where are we really and what's really controlling us, what's really around us. So I'm going to say what my part is when I speak, and I'm going to say what his part is when he talks. But basically, I got started with, like I was saying, there's this cage-like structure around us, and by cage-like structure, I kind of see that more as like this ethereal thing. Every time I kind of tap into that, it looks a bit like white to me. So really like this white ethereal thing, which will go into the meaning of the ether after this quote as well, by the way, after this conversation. And I keep feeling, and I keep coming back to the concept over and over again, that something went wrong in the original Atlantis. And by original, I mean we're still in that Atlantis. It's just kind of like this computer program that has this bug or error in it. And so we keep getting looped over and over again into these different realities, or rather like similar realities, the same realities, call them reincarnations on this earth realm or whatever. But I kind of feel there's this matrix that we're in right now, which most of our consciousness is in. And I also feel there's something, for lack of a better word, something like empty space or something around it. Maybe there are beings in it, like beings outside of this matrix who already escaped somehow, or who are able to escape, help us escape. But I also think we don't necessarily have to rely on them. I do want to say that too, because I know some people out there really rely on them. They're like, oh yeah, these higher vibrational beings outside of the matrix who we have to call upon, all that. No, I don't think that at all. And I also think there's a reason we're here. There's a reason we're able to make the most out of this lifetime, or also other lifetimes that we had or whatever. And we're able to create our own lives, the lives we desire, to manifest whatever we want. Manifest, by the way, comes from mani, hands, meaning creating with your own hands. And perhaps also escape the matrix in your flesh body so that you don't necessarily have to wait until after death. So that's a bit of a continuation from the perspective that I shared in the previous video. And like I already said, I feel we're just constantly being distracted from all of this. Just the amount it took for me to actually sit down and being able to make this video, it's like there's constant noise around us. There's constant distractions being thrown at us. And it's not necessarily because I'm in this big city where you have it like that. I also feel that whenever I go somewhere else, like in the countryside, whatever, there's always something that's trying to distract. We're being constantly bombarded with whatever's. We're having our cell phone, all of that energy and frequency around us that's probably trying to get to us. So there's so much that goes on. We're being put constantly in these loops over and over again. And we're also being confused because of these loops. So by loops, I mean, sure, we do experience these loops in our reality, in our life right now, but it's more so like that reincarnation loop over and over again, which some people call the recycling trap or recycling machine. A bit like, so I kind of see that a bit like a system error in a computer program. And that, you know, possibly this error has to be fixed also in order to get out of that, in addition to all the other keys that are somewhere, somehow, and all the other ways out, which I was talking about the Vatican having one of those keys, and also other people, other families having those keys. And so I think it's just not a one-off answer. I feel there's different ways to approach it. I don't think you have to die to experience it. I think when people come together as a group and dissect through these concepts as a group, the stronger you can also find a way out together. So the more people awaken from these psyops, the better. I think it's overall just a group effort. And there may be individuals pivoting ahead, or individuals who are kind of able to get through that mind wipe that they try to put us under, or kind of individuals who are able to wake up earlier, of course, but the rest still has to merge together with those. So overall, I do think it's just a group effort over and over again. And so then the person I was talking to, who's a guy, he was saying, so this is basically his entire quote or paraphrase. I was going to go into the AI thing. People talk about AI way before it was even what we have now. I think it's mostly technological. And by technological, I mean aliens, demons, etc. So I'm going to intersect and say, I'm going to tell you what I agree with and everything after I paraphrase this entire thing. He goes on, the terminology does not mean much to me because it's all the same thing. Like, you have good beings and evil ones. I think honestly, with all this talk about UFOs, it's been going on forever. I think it's technological, like the memory wiping, the reincarnation. I think it's an actual technology like this computer. And I think it's a legit technology that is advanced enough that it can appear into subtler forms of existence, like densities, astral energy, and stuff like that. It's definitely a machine, though. Like, when I think about AI is reaching more than computers and electronics. I think it's just a very complicated form of machinery that is actually able to bend reality in a way. A lot of it could be almost Star Trek tier stuff. It's probably aliens. It's probably just some kind of farming, manipulation, genetics stuff. And all this stuff that we have come to know as magic, synchronicity, all of that, it's probably from a technological standpoint. Because you have to remember all the way back when nobody knew about this. Back in the days, an iPhone would have been considered magic. So let's just go back like a few hundred years ago. Showing someone on a screen, being able to talk to someone all across the world, they would think it's an artifact. And now we were just able to discover this thing. If we were able to discover this thing, we could touch it and it would teleport us. It's magic. But then a couple of centuries down the line, we figure out how it works, and it's probably tech. So I think there's no distinction between magic and fantasy universes and magic and technology. I think it's one thing. I think we just focus on it and express it differently. I think the government probably knows exactly what it is. I don't know if the moon is fake or what's going on with that, but I know there's some sort of technology that can do stuff to your cellular body. I know that those things are telepathic. I know they can screw with your memories. I know all of that. So to put two and two together, it's some kind of technology thing. And there are probably positive forces in place that are trying to prevent or fight that, but they can't go about in an outright manner or conflict. So I think when people die, the ones that get recycled, there's some type of technology in place that does it. It's kind of a farming thing. It's kind of all over the place, but I think there's a technology that does it. And like with everything, and like with tech, everything can be broken or repurposed. So when that happens or how that happens, all depends on how many people realize it. And, you know, the more people realize it, the more attention is on it and the more reality shifts. That's just how it works. That's how energy works. I think anyway, that's when it will, like any real chance to do anything about it will take place. Because individually, basically, if these things are negative entities or the negative ones messing with you, I guess the only thing you can do is to be as positive as you can, or to make your energy field so that they don't want to mess with you, or it will cause them to mess with it. But eventually, like, you know, people who are in a good mood or very happy, they can see someone as sad, but they're not part of that world per se. And then I kind of intersected. I was like, oh yeah, they are a part of it, but it's almost like they're rejected by it. So I was kind of thinking about, you know, when people, and I think we all know these kind of people in our lives, like people who are just constantly pulling things down. You know, I hung out with a lot of those people back when I was actually probably like early teens or whatever. I had this job in the food industry, and you kind of do experience some of the most miserable people in those type of jobs. And there was this one person who was so miserable in her job, and she was basically always in a bad mood. And even back then, I realized that just hanging around this person was really doing something to me, and for lack of a better word, my vibration, right? And I was like, you know, I don't want to hang around this person anymore. I want to hang out with a coworker that's actually very positive. So it's almost like you really get rejected by those people who are always like in this negative energy, in this negative field. So I actually completely agree with that statement that he made. And so it's like you're really turned off by it. Okay. And so he goes on saying, yeah, so I think it's like that, but on a frequency so powerful that it's almost on a physical level. You know, people who get so angry that their whole life changes, like they do something. So it's something like that. If someone feels something so positively and they're able to maintain it, that's the key word, maintain. I think that's where the chances come from. If a sudden change in your emotional states, and emotions are what manipulate everything, I think emotions are the key. You know how they say the mind is higher than well, I guess he meant emotional. So I'm just trying to read my notes here. I think the heart is the key. They are always after your emotions. Emotions are what is important. And if you can feel something positive and keep it there, or at least maintain it, that's where the changes happen. Because if you feel a burst of euphoria, but then you're back to baseline, you have to just change your baseline subtly. And that's when you start noticing positive changes in your life. And how you do that really depends. I mean, everybody's different. I think that's how I'm going to approach it, because I am in the process of doing it, and then we will see where it goes. Because as you walk on that road, that's when stuff starts coming to you. So you can't really predict where it's going to go. And you can only know that, like, if you're trying to do stuff positively, those things are going to attract or expect interferences, because those things are trying to drag at you any chance they get. Okay, and then I was saying, you know, you can actually turn your disease around with the power of your mind. So it's kind of like getting back to, I think the mind's also important, not just the emotions, but I do understand the point he's making. So it makes a lot of sense what you're saying with the scalar waves and tech they're using. I personally think the Schumann Resonance, which is really pushed by the New Age movement right now, right? The Schumann Resonance meaning the earth or you are high vibrational when it's like really high or whatever. The Schumann resonance is in reality just similar to EMF poisoning, and people who are experiencing those poisoning symptoms, such as the headaches, whatever else you experience, like feeling sluggish, they're experiencing that from the device they're using that they use for the Schumann resonance somehow. They're kind of controlling the Schumann resonance. And I made a short movie on this channel too, so look at my shorts for that. It was like a few months ago. So you're going to feel hungover, you're going to feel headaches, you're going to feel all of that. Same with the technology they're using, same with the weather. So I noticed there's been huge weather changes over these past few years specifically. I noticed there's been just huge climate changes in certain countries that used to be very cold. Now all of a sudden they're like super hot. And especially here where I am, you know, we're experiencing a weird summer again over the past few years. So they're definitely messing with the weather. It makes a lot of sense. Okay. And then he's saying people often try to draw the distinction that tech is tech and is completely different from magic. Magic is, you know, what do they mean by magic? Conjuring up a flame in your hand or floating in air. So that's like what we usually think magic is. And I was saying, well, magic is an illusion of the mind. And all these illusionists, they just work with the mind illusion. Because I personally actually have a friend who I would consider a magician or like an illusionist. Like he's more of an acquaintance, so I don't ask him about all his tricks. But I know for sure that a lot of tricks that he has, it's just a mind illusion somehow. It's kind of like they distract you for one blink of a second or a blink of an eye, and then the magic happens. Okay, and he goes on saying, and if a creature is able to, let's just say, demons or aliens or whatever this creature is, if a creature has a body and everything, like you and me, if it can control your mind somehow telepathically, somehow with a device, let's just say like a cell phone type device, who is to say it can't make you feel certain things, like feel like you're burning or make you feel like you're out of your body? It looks like it's shape-shifting, but it's actually just making it seem like it is something else. And so that was really interesting, because when you listen to all these channelers, you know, all these new age channelers, they're like, oh, and this alien looked like this and like that. It's basically just like projections of a certain entity, right? Like they're using tricks on the mind and everything in the astral. And is it a device? It could very well be. So he goes on saying, I'm thinking it's the technology all the way through. And technology is mind-centric, egocentric in its nature. I found this sentence very interesting because it explains a lot. It tries to control everything, it tries to calculate everything, and it tries to optimize everything. It's not coming from a heart center, very different basically. And I feel these things are using it to control pretty much everything. So the entities. So the only way to counter it is, and then I said to shut down the computer. That was like my initial instinct. And he was like, yeah, but from our standpoint, it's the heart. So the way to counter all of this technology is with the heart. Like you have your emotions, like you take back that power. They can keep trying, but they can't outright control you. I am trying to avoid all the talks and projects about it. So, you know, you see all these talks online about Project Bluebeam or whatever, because all of that seems like scare tactic. Let's look at it this way. If they already control, which they do, so if they already control, you know, everything that they're saying, what would be the point in disclosure, announcing themselves? They already have everything in their grip. The only reason they want to announce themselves with all these alien disclosures and whatever, in my opinion, would be for an ego thing. Like if you can control everything behind the scenes, you are already won. So whenever information like aliens, etc., slips out, I try to not pay attention to it, as it tends to ruin my mood. And there's nothing I can really do about it. A, and B, why would you let it go out? All variants of the alien agenda, a distraction tactic, a scare tactic, and meant to feel all these negative emotions. And that's when they can control you even more. And then I was saying, you know, it's disinformation, is trying to confuse you even more. And he went on saying, them glitching out, it's technology. So we kind of had like a few moments where we were talking about something else and we came back to this. Them glitching out, it's technology. Technology can be broken or destroyed. It's just that it's so advanced and so well hidden, it seems impossible, but it's just trickery. And then so we went on saying, we were kind of coming, oh yeah, we went on going further into the simulation theory and everything. And also just like robotoids and clones in real life. So I kind of want to have a different video on AI in our lives. So I also think, you know, it's mind illusion, but there could also be glitches in this system. And that's what we may be seeing right now. You know, when people are talking about the birds in the sky, that some of them kind of look like pixelated whatever's, all of that could be glitches in the system, in addition to other glitches. We're going to move on to the Schumann Resonance. And my Telegram chat, I had this comment about the Schumann Resonance, and there was a video being forwarded. This is on TikTok, so I'm not going to put it on here, but basically the video is talking about how there's a possibility that the Schumann resonance is really controlled by us. Instead of measuring lightning strikes in the ionosphere, it's really measuring the collective reverberations of energy from all of us, taking the collective precognitive abilities of everyone and putting it all together. It suggests that the Schumann resonance can be looked at to predict major events similar to the feeling one gets when something bad is going to happen. And I disagree with that. And I'm going to tell you why. Because the Schumann, I'm just reading from my notes, by the way. The Schumann resonance is a tool the NASA invented. If you spell NASA backwards, it's a, some people see a form of the devil in it, Satan, all of that. If you just kind of switch the letters around. But I guess backwards, it would be Asan, which might have a different meaning. So that's also interesting because everything's inverted in our reality, right? Like literally everything. So it's a tool that NASA invented. I think it's part of the matrix machine tech they have to control the people in general. I had a video out exactly a year ago on the matrix machine technology. And if you haven't seen it yet, definitely see it. It's a good video. I don't think it spikes because of us. So this is the Schumann resonance, but more so because they, meaning whoever controls this matrix machine tech, which is literally, the controllers, the AI entities, everything. We're just like this elite group, anyhow, that runs everything around us, or is trying to run everything around us, but it's not going to succeed in that. And if it were to be successful already, it wouldn't have to put all of this stuff on us, right? All of these restrictions and keep us hypnotized and all of it. So it spikes because they're literally putting radiation in our atmosphere and it changes our mood. It also causes headaches. So maybe that's why I'm also experiencing headaches, but it has been pretty hot here. So I think it has just a mix of things. The headaches has to do with magnesium deficiency. And they've been really depleting our environment of magnesium, boron, and I forgot the third mineral. I have to look it up. So it's so funny because I mentioned this in the original video and I put a note in my head, look up the third mineral, and now I'm recording this again. And I'm like, what's the third mineral? The reason we're deficient of it is simply because they're depleting it from our food, our water, our environments. The food completely changed from the 1950s and on. We're not eating the same food our ancestors ate. Even if we think we are, we're not. Major supermarket chains came about in the 1950s and on as well, really just being controlled, again, by a small group of people, or just by a small group of whoever is in charge of that, the FDA, supposedly. And so the same food we're eating 100 years ago didn't even exist for the most part, but they completely changed our food. They're changing our entire soil. They're changing the way the farmers are supposed to do everything as well. So everything's changed and they're depleting our entire environment of magnesium, boron, and other minerals too. Another thing frequently noted are fatigue and headaches from sensitive people, meaning people can really pick up on this, who are just kind of wired in that way. Like I would be able to pick up on it quite easily because once your antenna is kind of wired to all of this, it's just wired, right? But I'm sure other people watching this channel pick up on it too. So another thing frequently noted are fatigue and headaches when it spiked a lot. This has to do with magnesium deficiency, meaning they probably radiated us. And that's how our bodies react to it. I actually would like to know what it looked like before 9/11, meaning 2001, and other events. I guess you could trace the data back and see what exactly occurred around the spike times. But another thing I'm very suspicious of is that before 2017 or even before 2014, it was not hyped at all. And I therefore see it as a perfect new age tool. That's my reply to it. I'm sure you could find articles on it before already, but it's been majorly hyped from 2014 on, from 2017 on. And now, now everyone's talking about it. Even a non-new ager is possibly talking about it. Similar to the Lionsgate portal that's really hyped, which we'll have videos on that later too, later this month.